Hello there, welcome to my channel, and this is our review series around the iFlytek AINote 2. Now, this is a device, or a company rather, where I reviewed their smaller version, their 8-inch version, the AINote Air 2, just about 3 months ago. I've never heard of either the AINote Air or this AINote 1, so I don't know if that was because it was only in Asia, or if they just started with number 2. But regardless, here we are. Now, to put the AINote in a little bit of context, again, as far as the Western market is concerned, this is the second release from this company called iFlytek. iFlytek is generally known for kind of their translation type devices, and so these two devices are really their first foray into the e-ink space, and they're trying to leverage their core competence by putting in multiple languages and having different, voice recognition languages onto their devices. So that's basically kind of the connection there and how they're trying to make an inroad. Obviously, AI, as it says in the name of the device, plays a major role here as well. And with the AINote Air, that was mainly through a chatbot, haptic button, in addition to a little bit of AI embedded in the system, but it was pretty light in that regard. Now here with the AINote 2, we see very similar specifications from the AINote Air, obviously with a larger screen in this case, but they do add this AI button, so it'll be interesting to see if there's even more integration with AI than what we saw previously. When I reviewed the AINote Air, one of the things I noticed is relative to Viwoods, which also releases products with, they call them the AI paper, is that while both devices from Viwoods and iFlytek had a quick access to a chatbot, beyond that, Viwoods was much better in terms of integrating AI into their device, assuming you wanted it. You could use the device without AI, but if you wanted it, it was there, and for example, you could do custom queries that you could create on your own and then utilize it that way. AINote is a little bit different in that, for the most part, there wasn't a lot of embedded and certainly no customization in terms of how they integrated AI into their device. So very different about how the two companies are approaching AI. And Viwoods, I say, is a little bit deeper, at least as in terms of what I saw before with the AINote Air. And AINote is a little bit more surface level, but promising to go deeper with this particular model. So one of the things we'll be looking for in this review series is how deep do they go and what does that mean for the device. Now, it's very purposeful that you can compare both iFlytek and Viwoods. They both started releasing devices last year, at least again in the Western market, and again, both with the theme of AI. And there's other similarities with this particular device. So I'm going to put this graphic on the screen, and you can see some of the key specifications of the AINote 2. You can see the screen size, the resolution, and what's not mentioned here is that the AINote 2 is using a Mobius screen as well. So therefore, the screen on this device from iFlytek is identical to Viwoods AI paper. And the only other device that I'm aware of that uses that type of screen, as of this filming, is the SuperNote Manta. So these are the three devices using this Carta 1300 screen with a Mobius technology, where the screen's a little more flexible and a little more durable as a result. So not only is it the AI features that make the iFlytek and Viwoods competitors, it's also the fact that for these 10.65-inch devices, they're using the identical screens. You can see that the iFlytek has the advantage of being a little bit thinner, but in particular, quite a bit lighter. That's really, in terms of specifications, the headlining stat here. It does have less storage than the Viwoods AI paper, a slightly smaller battery, although you have to be careful just looking at battery size because it really depends on how the software integrates with that battery. And I will be doing battery testing, which will feature in the final review video. So we'll see those results there. Both have Google Play. So again, just a lot of similarities between the two devices. A key difference, though, is how much more expensive the iFlytek device is over the Viwoods device. And indeed, when I looked at iFlytek's previous model, the 8-inch Air, and compared that against Viwoods Mini, the same dynamics played out. Both great devices, a lot to like about both, but ultimately the price, advantage was squarely in Viwood's corner, and the iFlytek just didn't do enough to be able to overcome that price difference, to justify that additional premium. So the question we'll have in this review series is, will history repeat itself? Is this kind of almost $100 additional money that they're asking for the iFlytek device justify it over the well-established Viwood's AI paper? So we will explore that, particularly in the review video. This video, however, is going to be focused more on the hardware and the unboxing. So we'll go through an unboxing montage. I'll kind of walk you through that process. We'll set up the device, and then we'll talk a little bit about the device itself, the hardware aspects, and even a little bit of an introduction into the software aspects as well. So this is very much a first impressions video. So with the context set, let's go ahead and jump into the unboxing. Okay, so here we're going to start with the unboxing, and I'm going to do something a little unusual this time. I'm going to show you the actual cardboard box the device was shipped in. And the reason why I'm doing that is you can tell probably at a pretty quick glance how beat up this box is. In fact, that tape that's going from top to bottom isn't actually fully connected to the box itself. It's very kind of loosely connected there. Box, of course, is beat up. You see almost some holes there if you look carefully to the right and a little bit down from center. Very strange. I don't recall ever seeing a boxing job like this. And if you open the box, that's what you see. So there's literally no packaging other than the items themselves. Not a great boxing job. And it came inside that box with 2 covers for some bizarre reason. I should have gotten 1, so I'm not quite clear why I got 2 of them, but there they are. There's the backs of the covers, and if you zoom in, that's what it says on the label on the back. And then you see the device itself, and then mine wasn't supposed to, but it came with this extra little kind of pouch-like thing that has about 5 tips in it and a tip remover, which is kind of nifty. So then, if we look at the back side of the box for the device, there it is, and there's a close-up of the label there. Okay, this is the back of that tip remover along with the extra nibs. So we'll take a closer look at that in just a little bit. Here we're taking the outer sleeve off the device itself, and then we open it. That's what you see. Pretty normal, except the top of the box doesn't have any padding. It's just a cardboard top. A little unusual lately. Most device manufacturers ship with, obviously better packaging to begin with and a little bit of padding. Having said all of that, I didn't see any particular issues with the device as a result of, any problems during shipping. So as much as I might be a little bit critical of how things were packaged, the device certainly arrived in good shape. So, maybe it's not as big of a deal as it might appear, but anyway, if we go ahead and remove the device, then underneath you see the stylus there, and you also see a couple boxes. And if you open those boxes up, you see a manual with a couple nibs attached, and then you see the USB-A to USB-C connector there on top. There is the device itself without the plastic cover, and there is the back of the device, and you can see there's little pads on each of the 4 corners, and there's also pogo pins, which is used if you want to attach a separate keyboard cover, which I didn't purchase, but that is available with this device. There's what one of the sides looks like. This is the top. So what you're seeing is that button on the right is basically the power button. The button in the middle is actually an AI button, oddly enough. And that is one of 2 AI buttons on the device. There's also a haptic button on the front of the device. You'll also notice that there are a groove that runs, most of the length from that AI button to the left and toward the right. Very similar to the design language of the remarkable Paper Pro series, although in that case they have 2 grooves. In this case, there's 1. You do feel it, you kind of notice it, but it's very subtle. It doesn't detract from holding the device. You're just kind of aware that it's not a completely flat surface when you're holding it. Not a big deal. And actually, I kind of like the single groove approach visually as opposed to Remarkables with the 2 grooves, but just a small aesthetic preference on my part there. Here is one of the long sides. There's nothing on that side. It's nice and smooth. It does have the groove running through it, although you can't really make that out here in this image. Here's the bottom half. You see the grooves there. You see the USB-C connector, and you also see an indicator light. And then that's the other side, which again has nothing on it. There is the device with the stylus attached to the side. And then this is, I opened up one of the cover boxes, so this is what it looks like. This is the light gray option. You open it up. There is a little flap in there that you can use to put your stylus in if you don't want to use the magnetic connection. And you can see the indentations there where the rubber feet settle into the cover. And of course it is a magnetic cover. There's the back side, nothing of note. And that's what the whole device looks with the stylus connected magnetically and the cover on it. Here's a little bit of a close-up on that extra nibs and stylus removal tool. And there's the back side. That QR code is basically a video that guides you to how to use it, although if you look on the back of the packet itself, it pretty much shows you there, and it's pretty straightforward. Finally, there are the nibs themselves. That's what it looks like. Fairly standard shape for these types of plastic nibs. Okay, let's go ahead and do our weigh-in, and remember that the stated weight was 295, and indeed that's what we're getting here, 294. If we add the stylus to that mix, that takes it up to 314, so about 20 grams for the stylus, a little heavy for the stylus. Usually you see it between 12 and 14. And then all 3 things, the device, the stylus, and the cover, is a 460 grams, so a pretty light package overall. Okay, a couple more notes about the hardware before we start getting into the setup. There are microphones, they're front facing. You can see little grooves there and there. They call it a 4 microphone array. And then if we focus on the stylus, you'll notice that it says iFlytek here on the end. It does have this kind of flat side. It also has an eraser, and then it has a button right there. There's a little bit of a texture to the stylus, which presumably might help with grip. It's also a little bit thicker than styli normally are, which I kind of like. So my general impressions of the stylus initially, without having actually used it, is fairly positive. I think it's generally a pretty decent design. We'll see, of course, how it actually works in practice, but the early signs are positive there. The ideal, if you're connecting it via magnet, is to connect it up high. That gives you the strongest connection possible, and there it is. So just touching on the overall lightness of the device itself, for whatever reason, when I first handled the device, it didn't strike me as being significantly light. It certainly wasn't heavy, but that sensation of how light it is relative to any other e-ink tablet I've used, it just wasn't there initially for whatever reason. But then as I started to kind of hold it and get a feel for it, I think that lightness really started to kind of come to the forefront for me. So you definitely do notice it. For me, it took just a few moments to get to that over my initial impressions, but it definitely is something that you're aware of, and it's really nice to have something that's a 10-inch as light as this particular package is. That's definitely a selling point. The hardware in general is pretty solid. I don't sense any creaks. Everything seems to be in order. If I have any particular issues later on, I'll let you know, but the initial impressions are quite good. Even though it's thin and it's light, it seems like it's fairly well built. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through the startup procedure then. I'm going to, as it indicates there, press 3 seconds on the power button, and we'll get this started for the first time. And we're now in the startup sequence. And presumably it is booting up. I'm going to just leave the camera rolling just to give a sense of how much time is involved in going through this process. Boot up processes on most devices tend to run anywhere from 20 to 40 or so seconds. So this is so far within those parameters. We'll see if it starts up soon or if it has a longer startup than we're used to. Definitely seems to be on the longer side here. I don't know if that's because I'm staring at it with the camera rolling, but there we go. Okay, not too bad. That's actually probably maybe a touch on the longer side, but not too notable. Let's go ahead and start. Well, okay, there we go. And we'll go ahead and pick my country here. I like this setup process because it allows you to quickly, as opposed to having to scroll a lot, get to what you need. You can feel the screen, when you push on the screen, you can feel it give, and that's because it's a Mobius screen. It's designed to do that. The advantage, you do get a little bit of give. So there's a little bit of that sense of writing on a pad of paper. But the real advantage to Mobius is that it's just durable. It can handle falls better than, say, just glass. So that's the advantage there. I'm going to go ahead and go into little BNet. I'm going to put my password in there, and I'll see you after I put that in. Okay, got the password in, and we got connected quite quickly. That was pretty impressive. And then we'll go ahead and click continue. And now we can do date and time. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have to go through a list. All right, there we go, finally. Okay, we're good. Now we can put in automatic. All right, here is some of their legalese, specifically focusing on privacy. As they're talking about how they're using storage and microphone, we'll go ahead and click on that. Continue. Here it is to set up an account. I'm going to go ahead and not do that for now. That will, however, limit what I can do with the device, as noted there. We're not going to do a lock screen, so we'll go ahead and pass on that. There we go. And apparently they have an app, so you can download it using the QR code there. We'll go ahead and click start. And we are now in the device. So there is the setup process. Let's go ahead and check and see if there's any type of firmware update. So we're going to go ahead and click on this gear icon. And there's the software update. Let's click on that. And it's checking. And okay, so in order to update the device, it looks like we might have to create an account. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that then. I'll go ahead and create an account and see if that changes things. I'll go ahead and fill this in, and then I will see you on the other side. Okay, so I went ahead and logged into my account, and now it's asking me if I want to do a free trial of their cloud services for 90 days, which I guess comes with a terabyte of capacity. I'm not sure what that's going to cost after the 90 days, so we'll go ahead and pass on that. Let's go ahead and go back in and take a look and see if there is a software update. Okay, apparently I have to wait a minute after having activated the device. Not sure why that's the case. Let's try this again just to see. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we do have an update. So I'm going to go ahead and time this, and we're going to get the old stopwatch out like so. And we're going to go ahead and get this started, and let's go ahead and go, and we'll time it and see how long it takes. Okay, I'll see you on the other side. Okay, the update completed. It took just under 15 minutes, which generally speaking is a pretty quick update. The following message came up, so in order to kind of have some of these services like handwritten content search, summary generation, and sharing and export, I have to turn on automatic cloud recognition for handwritten notes. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. And there we are. And now here we find ourselves back on the home screen. Okay, I was about to say that it took about 50 seconds to reboot, but I realized that was kind of an unfair because that was coming out of a system update. So I went ahead and just restarted it, and it actually took about 25 seconds. So it's actually a fairly quick boot up time when you go from power off mode to on mode. So that is an accurate measurement. we now have another update all of a sudden. Okay, let's go ahead and get that done, and we'll go ahead and start timing that. Okay, that took no time whatsoever. I mean, literally just a few seconds. So that was just apparently installing the module to allow for the keyboard cover. So we'll go ahead and just back out. And here we are on the home screen. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these haptic buttons and see what they do. I thought this was a chatbot interface, so let's take a look. Okay, there we go. And yes, it opens right up. I should point out, I'm calling these haptic buttons on the bottom, but there is no vibration to them. You're just taking your finger and swiping across it. I don't know if that's technically a haptic button or not. But yeah, that's how you pull up your chatbot interface. Let's see how that varies from the AI button we have here on top of the device. Okay, so this is called AI Aid, and this is where it's basically, okay, so it's doing an audio check and you can do certain things. Really wasn't what I intended, but this is a nice summary of what it can do. Record audio, transcribe speech to text, real-time captions, and you can read that on and on. And again, those are some of the commands that you can use. But the minute you press the AI button, it's going to be listening for you. This is all audio on top. So that's one of the key differences. So this is more of an assistant, it appears, and then this is more of a traditional chatbot interface. Let's go ahead and press the button to clear that out. Down below, we have this icon. This is for a quick note. Here we go. Okay, so a little bit of a scratchy sound, a touch on the squeaky side. Let me go ahead and move the microphone close and you can hear this. Okay, so there you go. Pretty decent. It's not as scratchy as, say, a Remarkable or some other devices, not quite as scratchy as the new Note Air 5C, but it's not, there is a little bit of something there, a little bit of scratchiness to the writing, so it's not as bad as, say, the Books Tab Ultra C, which was really much more squeaky than it was scratchy. So, a little bit subtle on the scratchiness, but not too bad. Okay, let's do a little bit of a brief tour of the device. You might notice you can see a little bit of ghosting on the screen. You can take 2 fingers and tap. There you go, like so, and it'll refresh the screen. So that's one gesture. You can swipe down. There's your drop-down bar with a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth toggle. You've got Miracast. If you have a casting device, it'll share whatever on the screen. You have airplane mode. You can refresh the screen here as well. You can take a screenshot, you can rotate the screen, and then you can go right into settings. We'll go there in a second, but down below you have 2 refresh modes. You have best display, which will normally give you the nicest display, but if you're doing any type of scrolling, you'll probably want best speed. There's your sound bar, and then we have universal shapes, and there looks like there's about 8 different pen types that are available, and then you've got your relevant thickness there as well. Let's go ahead and go into settings. So you see here some classic, just connected Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. If we click on General, there you've got a little bit of your wallpaper and signature, and you've got some other settings here as well, including your floating ball, which is available in apps, or you can hide it. That's like a nav ball in books and other devices. If we go to buttons and gestures, basically, if we click on gestures, you can see all the different ones. We talked about the 2 finger. We did the swipe on the drop down. You can swipe over here for notifications. Swiping from the bottom is the multitasking bar. And in addition to that, it also allows you to go home as well. So that's kind of nice. So you can either click on something that you've already opened, or you can close something, close everything, or go home. Then if you want to do a screenshot, that's 3 fingers down. Page flipping is to the left and the right. And then 2 fingers allows for scrolling on the screen. 3 fingers left is undo, 3 fingers right is restore, and then you can kind of pinch and zoom on this device. In addition to that, there's some other settings. You've got the pen, the button on the pen actually can have, if you're far away, meaning more than 1 centimeter, and you press the button, it becomes an eraser. If you're close to 1 centimeter, then it becomes the smart pen, and it allows you to create things like circles, stars, and I think triangles as well, and those all have different types of functionality. And you can change the near to either not do anything, be an selection eraser or regular eraser, in addition to the smart pen. We'll go ahead and leave it at that. And finally, there's the quick bar. So we talked earlier about swiping in from the left. That is your chatbot interface, and to the right is the quick note. But you can also swipe pages going from the center to the left or the right. So those are just some of the general gestures that are available. And you notice that many of those you can toggle off. All right, let's just quickly start a note here. And here we go. And we'll go through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my visual tour for the previous AI note and see how it compares to this. And I'm going to focus actually in the next video. Whether I do a dedicated video or I embed this into the final review will depend on how much has actually changed from that initial visual tour that I did. It looks very similar here. Oops. Okay, we're bringing up a tutorial here. See if we can use that smart button to create a circle. Here we go. And this is telling you what that circle does. So this is creating basically a task. Got it. And you can toggle that there. I believe there's a triangle as well. Let's take a look at that. And there is. This is part of page management. Okay. And then I think there's a star as well. And there it is. So those are some of the smart tools that we saw with the AINote Air 2, and those continue here, and those are descriptions of what those tools do. They integrate with the calendar, so let's take a quick look at that. Here we go, and we'll go into schedule. And if we go on to tasks, there is the task. I can see it's got a little bit of a challenge there with the OCR, but it did make it over here. We can go to focus stars. Again, a little bit. This is what we saw as well with the AINote Air 2, is it had a hard time reading my writing. How messy was my writing? Let's go back and take a look at that. Okay, that there is pretty messy. That makes sense. That's a pretty ugly looking hello. Yeah, this is not great writing even for me. So that's not too bad, but I'll take a look at that and see how well it actually uses OCR when I'm at least somewhat moderately neat with my writing. These are acceptable misses. That's not good enough on my part. But that get a general sense though of what these things can do, and we'll take a closer look at that later. So I think that's a good overview of the device. Let me just give a few impressions of the device so far. It, definitely the screen. This is one of the, as we mentioned in the intro, the most modern e-ink screen available. It has a really nice contrast. It's the text is nice to read. So that's great. The screen has a little bit more give, I see, on this one than I noticed with either the Viwood's AI paper or with the Supernote Manta. So it's really interesting. There's a lot more give here on that Mobius screen, which is fine. It's a little bit disconcerting, but knowing that that's there, it's not too big of a deal. I don't know if it adds anything, but again, it's really the big advantage there is the durability of the screen. So yeah, that's our overview. Let's go ahead and go into our wrap up. Okay, so that does it for this particular video. Let me give you some of my first impressions of the iFlytek AINote 2. I've actually had a chance, after having done a bulk of the filming, to play with the device. I've actually spent a couple hours with it, and it's pretty clear to me that despite some surface changes and other kind of minor tweaks here and there, the software fundamentally is very similar to what we saw with the iFlytek AINote Air 2. So that's the device I filmed about 3 months ago. And you really want to take a look at that visual tour if you want to get a really good sense of most of the things the device can do. It's going to look a little bit different, particularly the home screen, but the functionality is pretty much 90% there, if not more. So I don't think I'm going to go ahead and do a video on the visual tour. I'm going to go right to my final review. So between now and then, I'm going to finish up the battery testing. Obviously, we'll be weighing the pros and cons of the device, and then we'll put it in context with how this competes against Viwood's, which I think the AI paper being its closest competitor. We'll also go ahead, since we're not going to do a visual tour, is I'll summarize and do a little bit of a software overview in the beginning of that review video so you can see some of the key features and you can see the device a little bit more in action in addition to what we filmed today. So that's the plan. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope to see you for that final review. Until then, have a great day.